Hi everyone. Welcome to the Employer Insights webinar, Working with Zillow, sorry. This virtual event is being hosted by the University of Washington Professional and Continuing Education. My name is Jo Gubas and I lead Community and Industry Partnerships. Now, I know that most of you will be familiar with us, and for those who do not, I just want to tell you that our team helps people keep learning at the University of Washington. Even if you're working or juggling family commitments or live outside of the area, you can study with us. And we offer about 70 different certificate programs, courses, boot camps, and part-time master's programs. Now, as many of our learners are thinking about career changes and new jobs, our team has developed some career resources to support you in your next steps. This Employer Insights panel is part of a new series of spotlights on leading employers. Last month, we hosted our first session with 4 recruiters from Amazon, and we'll share the link to that recording later if you didn't catch that. But today, we're going to be hearing from our friends at Zillow. Zillow is working to reimagine real estate, transforming the way people buy, sell, rent, and finance their homes. And in the last 15 years, the company's built the largest portfolio of real estate brands online. And in 2020, they clocked up over 9 billion visits. The company is well known for its innovation, and it also has a great reputation as a wonderful place to work. So we're going to hear a bit about that today. But before I get started, I just want to encourage you to add your questions for the panelists in the Q&A during the session. And in the second half, we'll tackle as many of those as possible. You can use the thumbs up feature to upvote any questions that you'd most like to hear answered. Last thing to say is that this session is being recorded and we'll be able to email the recording link out to all those who RSVP'd next week. With that, I would like to introduce Makeda. Makeda is Diversity Programs Manager on the early talent team at Zillow. And in her role, Makeda works to find and create opportunities for the best, brightest, and most diverse talent. Makeda, it's great to have you here today to lead today's discussion. And I'd like you to just take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jo. You make me sound so fancy. I love that. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I'll introduce myself really quickly, and then all of our panelists will turn their cameras on and they'll introduce themselves as well. But like Jo said, my name is Makeda Hope Critchlow, and I've been at Zillow for almost a year and a half at this point. I am indeed on the early talent team, and my responsibility is to manage our diversity recruiting programs and initiatives and help guide our strategy to find, like Jo said, the best and brightest talent for all of our opportunities across Zillow's brands all up. So I'm very excited to be here today. And so today I'll be driving our panel forward, but on our panel I have Scott Moore, Lionel Lee, and Cynthia Taylor. So happy to have y'all with us. And I'm going to kind of pass it off to each of you to introduce yourselves. So I'm going to start with you, Scott. Can you tell us how long you've been at Zillow, how you got here, and what you do?
Absolutely. Thanks, Makeda. So I've been at Zillow. My 1-year anniversary is coming up in 2 weeks. So excited to hit that milestone. I lead our early talent team, which essentially is all of our internship programs, which could be anywhere from a bachelor's degree all the way up through PhDs, coding boot camps, and other maybe non-traditional pathways in, as well as all of our new grad hiring as well. The reason I joined Zillow, I was super excited about the whole opportunity. I interviewed with Lionel actually in my interview process, who you'll meet here in a minute. So he definitely helped seal the deal. I don't want to steal his thunder, but we got a great panel today. Really excited and looking forward to hearing from everybody.
Love that. Thanks for sharing. I'm going to pop over to Cynthia to introduce herself.
Thanks, Makeda. Hi, everyone. I'm Cynthia Taylor. I'm based in Rochester, New York, and I've been at Zillow for just over 6 years now in a wide variety of roles on multiple brands, but primarily in product management. My current role is the Vice President of Product Management for Zillow Offers. And in this role, my team is responsible for building all of the software products that our internal employee operators use to actually make Zillow offers possible, where we're buying homes from customers directly and selling homes to customers directly. I'm super excited to speak to all of you today. As somebody who does a lot of hiring, I have lots of thoughts about what happens during the process and what makes candidates stand out.
I love that. Thank you. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. And last but not least, Lionel.
Yeah, Lionel Lee. I've been with Zillow Group since 2016. I was their first diversity officer hire. Started as a consultant initially, was a consultant for about 1 year and 8 months. What I do is I work as an internal consultant, primarily creating education opportunities for the company as a whole. And then I consult directly with many of our leaders and many of our employee base. Cynthia and Scott are 2 people that I meet with regularly. We just discuss a couple things that are happening in the world around their, sphere of influence. And that's my job. I have a really cool gig, and I also, a part of my job is to mentor, and something that I would actually do for free, but I don't have to. And Makita is one of my mentees. So yeah, so this is kind of cool. Thank you for having me.
Of course, love it. 3 of my favorite people at Zillow all on one call. So what a dream. I'm just going to lead us right into the work that we're doing at Zillow. So I'm going to start with you, Cynthia, but can you talk to us a little bit about why you were drawn to Zillow and the work that you get to do?
Yeah, well, first, I am personally interested in the real estate space. I think residential real estate, whether it's renting a home, finding a place to live, buying a home, selling a home, it's all way harder than it has to be. And I thought, wouldn't that be so awesome if, in the course of my work, where I spend most of my time anyway, I could actually have, some influence and actually maybe change things for the better for customers. And, Zillow is the place to be for that. So the industry itself, exactly what I want to be doing. And then separately, obviously there's other players in the industry too. So what made Zillow stand out to me was, as I was interviewing, getting to know the company and getting to know the people, it just really, people say, oh, we're collaborative, but I mean, Zillow really, really is collaborative. The things that get brought up during meetings, people actually ask questions about what you're doing and actually strive to understand your goals, and then actually go out of their way to figure out how we can all work together to support each other and create success together. And that really stood out to me from the very beginning, from the interview process on. And that's why I landed, and that's why I'm staying.
I love that. I appreciate that. I love the collaborative nature of the work that we do as well. That was a big selling point for me. Scott, I'm going to jump to you since you're, the newest in terms of tenure. What jumped out to you about Zillow and our culture, and why did you want to, work here?
Yeah, so it was a couple of things for me. One, I come from a long line of real estate professionals. So my father's a retired real estate agent. My stepmother is an active real estate agent. My older brother is a real estate, but commercial broker side. So it had always been like conversations around, the dinner table and stuff as a kid. And I was like, nah, I don't want to be a real estate agent. They work a lot of weekends and nights, and I was not wanting to sign up for that.
No, thanks.
When I came across this opportunity, I was like, well, I could work in real estate, but not into the same capacity. And more excitingly, I can work for an organization that's really disrupting an entire industry. Real estate is one of the oldest industries in this country. I mean, it's been around literally for hundreds of years. And unfortunately, it hasn't really evolved that much until the past probably 20, when Zillow started to get involved. So it was really exciting from that component. I would say the other thing was, and I referenced that I interviewed with Lionel, for this position that I'm in, and that really set the tone for me on how this organization wants to be inclusive, not just within itself, but within the whole real estate industry too. So that was a really big indicator to me that they are walking the walk and actually doing things internally and externally to make a difference in the world.
I just love that. And that's I will just thumbs up, +1, everything you said. That's exactly what compelled me to want to work at Zillow. And I same similar story. Lionel also was a selling point for me when I met him as well, wanting to come to Zillow, but working for a company that is walking the walk, like you just mentioned, right? Like wanting to have an inclusive workplace and owning where it's, got opportunities to grow and do better, and then really committing to doing the work and hiring folks like myself, but, to do that work to make us a better place to work for everybody. And in that same vein, Lionel, I'm going to jump to you for the next question. Over the last few years, what intentional steps have you seen Zillow take to further support and nurture its employees?
I think the one thing that stands out with Zillow Group is that we focus heavily on education around what we call equity and belonging. So for example, many companies will have what we call affinity networks. They call employee resource groups or business resource groups. But the difference is that at Zillow, those affinity networks are completely capitalized. And what I mean by that is that they not only have executive sponsors, which is pretty normal, but they also have their own budgets. We intentionally decided that we are not going to be prescriptive as to how they operate. We wanted each group to be autonomous and do what they needed to do in order for them to support their community. The other pieces too is that the culture at Zillow Group is what drew me. And then the opportunity to help shape the culture is what drew me. I am not a fan of corporate environments, just not. That's not how I'm made. That's not how I grew up. None of that. But at Zillow Group, what I saw was an opportunity to really impact the culture and make sure that we were looking at everything with an equity and belonging lens.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to jump over to you, Cynthia. What have you seen? What steps has Zillow taken?
Echo what Lionel said about this culture of learning and learning and development support for employees at all levels, at all stages of their career, looking to maybe grow in their current role or transition to a different role or learn new skill sets. There's no shortage of opportunities for folks to learn on the job and also resource supported learning. So there's classroom trainings like Presenting with Polish, which is a super popular class for public speaking or verbal presentations. There's self-guided learning that's technical and also non-technical via LinkedIn Learning and other platforms that's provided for employees. There's you can get audiobooks through Audible supported by Zillow Group on business and social topics of all kinds, just so that you can continue to grow as a well-rounded professional. For our managers and our leaders at Zillow Group, we've got everything from management foundations, which is for new managers transitioning into maybe that first management role, so that they're feeling supported in what it actually means to become a manager and then support people on your team. There's Leader of Others, Leader of Leaders for more seasoned managers later on in their careers. I mean, that you got the job, and then the company, Zillow, just really goes out of its way to make sure that everyone continues to grow and continues to have that growth mindset and apply that to their work, and that the skill sets that they have, that they bring to their teams. It's really phenomenal. I think it's special, and people do take the time out to take advantage of these resources, and it shows in the work that they're able to do and produce.
I love that. I didn't even know we had a class called Presenting with Polish. I love that. Love public speaking, but now I kind of want to take that. So good to know just for me. Scott, anything to add to that? Any plus ones or anything additional you want to add?
I actually haven't taken that class, but I've heard of it and I've heard it's amazing. So I'd encourage you to take it. Kind of talking about, professional development and supporting their employees, I'm going to actually use you as an example, Makita, if you don't mind. So for the past month or so, and probably for the next 2 months, I've actually loaned Makita out to another team. So she typically works within early talent, but We've given her the ability to work with one of our industry recruiting teams to expand her knowledge of recruiting practices and get involved in some areas that we typically don't recruit for in early talent at levels above new grads and whatnot. So that's just another way that people have an opportunity to continue to develop their skills as for stretch assignments and things like that, or maybe outside of their core responsibilities, or things that are maybe tangential to them that they don't get an opportunity to really experience. So Mickey, I don't know if you want to share some, how that's kind of gone and kind of build on it at all, but.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to be the story that we tell. I was going to add something else too about how we utilize affinity networks, but it has been interesting for me to, well, one, talk to folks who are, like, for lack of better words, grown-ups who I'm not interviewing, who are not interns, but, talking to folks who are in the industry and better understanding, the processes that the industry team does, because on early talent, our processes are so unique and distinct to our team because we have a completely different kind of rhythm of the business that occurs that's on a different cycle than the rest of kind of Zillow at large. And so I've been able to learn how the business is operating from a recruiting standpoint for industry and see how they're communicating with their client groups and how they're driving forward and understand what the needs are in a way that helps me come back to my team and say, okay, if we want to expand in this direction, or if we want to partner with the business, here are what their care abouts are in this org. And here's how we can, figure out how, to Cynthia's earlier point, how can we collaborate and how do we accomplish those goals together, both with early talent and whatever the goals of that business group might be, which I think is really kind of interesting to do. So I'm enjoying it. The other thing I was going to add about how Zillow empowers its employees or further develops and nurtures its employees is with the Affinity Network. So I'm actually an Affinity Network leader. So I'm a director of education and allyship for Zillow, which is our Black employee network. And Zillow is one of the biggest reasons why I actually came to Zillow. But I love being able to be so involved and embedded into our company and our company culture and make a difference for folks who not only look like me, but allies as well. But what I think is the most exciting about the opportunity is that you get to actually utilize or take opportunities that stretch you in different ways that you might not have the capacity for in your day-to-day role. But we look at those things as ways to show that you have the capacity for that next level. For instance, my goals are to be a people manager. I don't actually get to manage people right now in my current role, but I can, manage projects and manage people and delegate in my Affinity Network leadership role. And I get to utilize that as evidence of my success or my capacity to lead in a way that is, kind of supplemental to the work that I get to do every day. So there's a lot of opportunities for you to develop the skills that you want, or get to use our VP of Community and Culture, or I've been longing her word, fit for purpose for that next, for that next opportunity in the role that you're in. And I find that to be really compelling as a growing employee within Zillow. So I appreciate that. Those are all good tidbits. I hope that these are still helpful for you all, because I'm finding these things helpful for me, and I actually already work here. So awesome. My next question, and I'm going to start with you, Lionel. How does the company culture impact the work environment and productivity on your team? And have there been any changes with that since we, switched to being remote?
The company culture is like Cynthia said, we're truly collaborative. So obviously we're using collaboration software, so like Google Docs, all those things. But the way that the company is ran and the way that the group is ran, so my group is pretty large. If you look at diversity groups in many companies, our group is considerably large compared to the size of our company. I think we have close to 30 people on the equity and belonging team. And the equity belonging team encompasses everything from data analytics to now recruiting. So it goes the full gamut, and then obviously the education pieces too. And I think that says a lot about our company and the way that we actually view the importance of equity and belonging. If you ask me, what makes Zillow Group different, my background is recruiting. That's my background. And then on top of that too, my background was agency recruiting primarily. I also worked internally, but most of it was agency recruiting. So part of my job as an agency recruiter and the way that I approached it was that I was my candidate's agent. that's the way that I looked at my job. So for me, whenever I engaged with a company, I had to do detailed research into that company and figure out what makes them different, what makes them great, what makes them horrible. And Zillow Group is just a company that I know intimately and that I would, refer anyone to, literally anyone to. I got Makita at Zillow Group. We do things very differently, and I'm very proud of that. And when people say that kind of stuff a lot, but you take a look at us and you'll figure out that we do. We set goals around hiring. We set goals around representation. We set metrics around how people feel that they are included within the company, how people feel that they are treated within the company. We take a look at all of that and we make adjustments as needed. To me, that's one of the things that makes Zillow Group really stand out.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. Scott, I'm going to hop over to you for this question.
I don't know if I can answer it better than Lionel, to be honest.
Okay, let me reframe the question. How do you think things, well, actually, no, this is actually a better question. I'm reframing it for you specifically, since you actually joined in our first virtual onboarding class. You've actually never dipped a toe in a Zillow office. So how do you feel about the company culture being like one of our first official, fully remote employees?
Yeah, no, it was a crazy experience. I interviewed for a day in the Seattle office. I interviewed for a day in our San Francisco office. I accepted the job offer, and then COVID broke. And that time in between me accepting the offer before I started, the offices is closed. So I was with the first group to onboard virtually. First time I'd ever onboarded virtually, first time I'd ever worked remotely. And it was really uncharted territory, not for me, but for our onboarding team and the whole works. So, I had to really think differently about how I integrated myself into the organization. And even, working with you as one of my team members, is like, how am I going to get to know Makita when I'm not able to do the things that I'm used to doing, right? And I had to take it on myself a little bit to shift, but there was a couple of really good things that came out of it. One, I learned what it was like to be in that environment. So when we started to craft our internship program for that summer, I had some kind of idea going into it, like, okay, this is where it went well for me. This is where it didn't go well. This is what we need to make sure we do differently for our interns. This is what we need to make sure we do differently for our full-time hires. And that was a year ago now at this point. So we have learned a ton. So I think my experience coming in is going to be very different than somebody's experience starting today, because we have an organization have built up the muscle memory and new programs and new things to be able to support people in a different way than what I got, where you don't necessarily have to be as proactive as I was. I still encourage everybody in this environment to be super proactive about building their internal network, because it has to be something that you take on with a lot of dedication and really forethought into how you're approaching it. You can't rely on it to happen organically anymore, and this just goes for any organization at this point, but you're not going to meet people at the water cooler, in the break room, in the elevator. Like, those things don't happen anymore, right? So you have to be much more strategic on how you approach it. So we have done some things internally now to address that. I think they're kind of augmentations of programs that previously existed. So one of them is, a lot of companies will assign a mentor when you first start with an organization. But what we've done to add on to that is there's now 2 software platforms that we utilize to help increase that level of mentorship that's available to people, and give a little bit more structure around it, because it, like I said, it doesn't happen organically. So we've created a new onboarding portal that helps people when they come into the organization. So one, they get access to some information even before they start, but then also it helps guide them through the onboarding process, within the first 1-2 weeks, even upwards towards a month. So there's a ton of stuff that we've done and learned over the year that will give people a much different experience than what I had. With that being said, my experience was awesome. I think the one thing that really changed my perception was how welcoming people were to the organization and how much people really wanted to be supportive of me. I can't tell you how many people in my first week just sent me a Slack message to say, hey, welcome. I know you're super busy. When you have time, you know, let's get together for coffee, right? And that really made a difference to me, is how proactive were people reaching out to me too.
I love that. That just like gave me all the warm and fuzzy feels. I'm glad people were so pleasant. That was one of the things I loved a lot when I started at Zillow. I was only on in person for actually 5 months, which feels insane. But so many people asked me if I wanted to go to lunch, or, you know, from different teams, like, oh, we're going to get a happy hour. Do you want to come with us? Like, I know you started this week. Like, you know, lots of invites, which was really, really nice. And I really always enjoyed that about our culture, and that is continuing even in a virtual distributed workplace, which I really love. I'm going to start with you, Cynthia, for this next question, because you mentioned you have so many things or thoughts as a hiring manager. So when bringing in new recruits, do hiring managers, you know, for you, look for people who will contribute positively to the culture? And what does that look like?
Okay, where to even start? I've seen a lot of questions in the chat around, do you hire for this role, or do you hire for this role? Do you only hire people with real estate licenses, or are you only hiring realtors? I mean, we've got 5,000 plus employees at the company in a variety of roles, in technical roles like software engineering, data science, product management, and non-technical roles like loan officers, transaction coordinators, renovation estimators, sales, marketing. We have the whole accounting, the whole spectrum. I mean, this really is a company where everyone should be able to find a role and a team for them right now, and also see opportunities for growth and feel supported in kind of trying new things or carving out the path for them. So when as a hiring manager, when I'm looking at candidates, what I'm really looking for are folks who are able to demonstrate, using the examples that they provide in their interview responses, that they understand Zillow Group's core values. Those are the 7 values that we've got, like customers are our North Star, better together, things like that. That's available on our website. And that they provide examples that show how they've embodied those core values in the work and the results that they've produced in prior roles. And that's not to say that we're looking for exact match experiences or exact match titles. That's actually far from what we're looking for. We want folks who are able to do the research to understand what responsibilities this particular role that they're applying for might have, and be able to tie their personal and professional experiences that they do have to those responsibilities, and in not just what they did, but how they did them, and how they can show the core values in how they've done those things. So that was kind of a roundabout answer, but hopefully that was clear. Feel free to ask a follow-up question in the chat if that wasn't totally clear.
That actually made a lot of sense. And I'm gonna click down on this question as I pass it to you, Scott. So like, I know Amazon, has, 14 leadership principles. Does Zillow have guiding principles or like particular qualities that aligned well with our values that we look for?
We do. Cynthia mentioned them a little bit, and they are posted on our website. So you can, if you just Google search Zillow core values, you might find values on homes, but if you put in core values, you'll find out what our values are. We have really good search engine optimization, by the way. But I think there's something that is to be said for the way that Zillow lives the values. Every company, you can go to their website and you can see, and like if you look at Amazon's that you mentioned, like and the wording is super important here. Amazon's list theirs as leadership principles, right? We list ours as values, our values, right? Like that's a very different way to even just term what they are. And when you start to read through them, try to read between the lines of what they're really saying. And it'll come out as to what it means. And I'll just give you an example here so you can do a little compare and contrast. we have one of ours is include and empower, right? So this gets to leadership, right? So it says we foster an environment where everyone feels included and empowered. We welcome new ways of thinking and are always looking at how we can create equitable opportunities for our people, customers, and partners, right? Like include and empower is really important. If you flip to Amazon's and you look for something like that, I don't really see it, to be honest. Like they shape theirs as leadership principles. And the closest thing that I could find to it was have a backbone, disagree, and commit. And it kind of threw me off a little bit. And I'll read what it says. It says, leaders are obligated to respectfully challenge decisions when they disagree, even when doing so is uncomfortable or exhausting. Great. Leaders have conviction and are tenacious. They do not compromise for the sake of social cohesion. Once a decision is determined, they commit wholly, right? If you read between the lines what that says, like what that says to me, it doesn't say include and empower. It says when the leader make a decision, just fall in line, right? Like that doesn't create, in my mind, a collaborative work environment like Cynthia had said. You know, so read these values and read between the lines of what you think it means. The other thing that I really encourage people to do is everybody can put a list of values up, but how do they live and breathe them? Like, how do they show up in the workplace? Like, read the news, read current events on what a company is being talked about or what they are doing, and then go back to their values and say, okay, this is the news on the company. Are they living and breathing their values, right? Are they in alignment? And sometimes they will be, hopefully most times they will be, sometimes they aren't, right? But that is a huge indicator to me. Like if a company is living and breathing their values and I'm behind those values, I want to go work there.
May I add to that?
Please.
Yeah, I was going to say, I saw you unmute, so go ahead.
Well, I think, so when we talked about core values, we were really intentional about what we were saying about who we are. And when we started having discussions around really letting the world know how we value a sense of belonging at Zillow Group, it wasn't something that we went into, you know, without a lot of consideration, a lot of conversations. I'm very proud of the fact that I was actually the one who coined the term include and empower. But the thing is that what we noticed, or what I noticed, and what others in the room noticed as well, is that there were very few companies that talked about their culture in that way. In fact, if you look at core values now, every company has core values, leadership principles, what it is. We're one of the few companies that within our core values, we talk a lot about how you're going to be treated and how you will treat other people and how you will be made to feel like you belong. But we're one of the first of all the tech companies to have that. Now you see a few of them, but I honestly feel that they're following our lead. And it was important for us because we wanted to make sure that the public and people that are thinking about joining us, people that you know, that are looking at us as, you know, as somebody to work with, they need to know who we are. We need to talk about our personality as a company, because every company does have a personality. And a part of us, a huge part of us, is that anyone that comes into Zillow Group, if you make it into Zillow Group, you will be treated well. You have to be. Our managers are graded on it. When they go to their reviews, Cynthia and Scott can tell you that when they go to their reviews, they're also reviewed on like, how did you treat your team members? How did you get the work done? And I think that's so important. It's so important right now.
I think that is such an interesting framework. Thank you for sharing. I guess I never like thought about it in that direction. Right now that I'm thinking about our core values, you know, ZG, the team sport, turn on the lights, which speaks to transparency, you know, integrity, those kinds of things. It is absolutely describing who we are before it describes how we get our work done. And I think that's really important to me when I'm thinking about a company. I want to know who I'm working with, and will I be supported as an individual, whoever I decide to be when I come to the table. Will that person be supported? Will I be able to, you know, make decisions in a way that, you know, align with my personal values, because I need that to align to the business that I'm supporting. And then I want to know how we get our work done. I absolutely care that we deliver quality on time every time, because that's what I want to do, but I want to know who we are so I can commit to doing the work with my colleagues, with my peers, and we care so much about collaborating. That's a really dynamic point, Lionel. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciated that conversation. Such good tidbits. I know we have a couple minutes left before we're going to switch, if I'm not mistaken, at the 40 to questions. And so I want to just answer one of the really important ones. So I'm going to start with you on this one, Cynthia. Do you have any suggestions for job seekers who don't have business or tech backgrounds, like folks who are transitioning into new careers or career returners?
I don't have a tech background, so I'm just going to start with that, but I work in product management. So yes, I have tips. It is really important to do your homework and do your research. Preparation in every step of the interview process shows. It definitely makes candidates stand out. So as you're applying to the role and as you're writing your resume for that particular role, really understand what is the role that you are actually applying for, and what are the roles and responsibilities for that particular job, and tailor your resume to that job posting. And use that opportunity on your resume to highlight the relevant transferable skills. Maybe you are super solid at customer service. You've worked a job before where you frontline, you're serving customers all day long. That's super important in technical roles as well. You really have to understand what's the customer problem, what's the customer need, and how do you solve that maybe through software. So maybe that's something that you highlight. Or you worked in a role where maybe you were on the phones all day. Communication is super important in technical roles as well, because it's critical when you're communicating with all of your different stakeholder teams and partner teams that you're clear in what needs to be done, what's the priority, how you're gonna work on this project together, next steps, things like that. So understand the role, tailor your resume to the role, highlight the transferable skills that you have that are important for that role, and that's what gets your foot in the door. And then preparation through every other step of the process is also key. Preparing for the phone screen and making sure that you've got, your outline for how you might answer common questions like, why this company? Why this role? Why you? Those questions are definitely going to come up on the phone interview for sure. So having solid responses in advance will definitely help. And also, when asked, especially if you think you don't have the background, first of all, that's a lie. Everybody has a background for everything. So don't think, oh, I don't have the background for this, or oh, I don't have a college degree, or oh, I'm just, I've been working in this totally different industry. That's you in your head. Like, don't go there. Okay. So what's really important when asked, why you for this role, that you don't start the answer with, well, I don't have a tech background, or I don't have a college degree, or I I can't do this, but that's the wrong way to start the answer. The right way to start the answer is first starting with what you do have. I've worked in customer service for 8 years. I communicate with clients at all levels regularly. I do this, and this is why I'm right for this role, because these skills are needed for the responsibilities that this role is required to do. So that's it.
I just Mona just give all the snaps to that answer. I love it so much. Lionel, I see that you unmuted, so I'm gonna let you go ahead and tag in.
Yeah, I think Cynthia is amazing. First of all, she's been at the company for a while now, and she recently got promoted to vice president. But I wanted to add and also align with what she said. I think there's a misconception about tech companies that you have to be technical, and that's not true. It's not true. I'm not technical. I was a technical recruiter, but I just knew the vocabulary. I figured out the vocabulary. And what also Cynthia said about, not being too worried about, your background. I don't have a college degree. But it was that what got me into the spaces was that I did know what I did bring to the table. I had to figure that out, and I had to really take a look at myself and really start thinking about, okay, what is it that I can contribute that might be different from someone else, that might be different from others? What makes me special in this way? And that's the way that I pursued it. And the reason that I wanted to talk about this too is that I think oftentimes what happens is that you get to a place where you think this is something that you might want to do, and then for some reason you get dissuaded. For some reason you say, okay, well, I'm not good enough. As soon as you do that, you're right. You just lost. You can't do that. You can't do that. You got to give yourself the opportunity to succeed. And if you don't take that first step, then you're right, you're gonna fail. That's just 100% true. You don't take that first step, it ain't gonna work out for you. So I would agree with Cynthia that there are so many other things that you can bring to the table. Your responsibility is to figure that out. Figure out what is the value prop that you present.
Yes, all the things. I'm going to tag on one tiny thing, as I'm extremely close to this because I like recruit every day, just for a little do's and don'ts. Cynthia, you said it perfectly. I cannot express in a more like painful way how many times I talk to people who cannot tell me why they applied for the job, or like I'll say, why this role, and they will have nothing to say. Or I've literally had people be like, what is Zillow? Is it like a website or a platform? Like, if you don't Google before you get here, okay? Like all those things are so easy for folks to be able to do and make sure you know why you're applying for the role. What is about the role that, you know, makes you excited for it? Why are you excited about the company? Especially for a company like Zillow, when we put out so much information on our website about what we're doing and where we're going and how we're thinking. Those are just like cheat codes for the interview. Look up, go to the website, see what we're doing. It shows, and you would think that that's like baseline because it should be, but it makes you stand out so easy because so many people do not do that. And so like really just do your research, just be prepared. You can do any role that you want. You have to just make sure that you're fit for purpose. And as a person who is not necessarily entry level, but I'm new, I'm, you know, making things happen. I had to get, you know, figure out what it is that I wanted to do and then find the ways to get those skills because I wasn't in the industry that I wanted to be in yet. And it took me a little while, and I kicked down Zillow's door frequently, Lionel can tell you, but I made sure that I did the work elsewhere to get the skills that I needed to do the job that I wanted to do. I didn't say that I couldn't do it or wasn't qualified. I made sure that I knew what I was bringing to the table. And it takes a little bit of work, but literally anybody can do it. So just like stay committed to the work and you'll get exactly where you want to go. But I'll get off my soapbox. We're going to go to questions, Joe. Thank you so much.
That was a great kind of point to end on in terms of the discussion. I don't know whether you've had a look at the Q&A, but we have all different kinds of people listening in today. Some sounds like there were some questions about, can you get a job straight from high school? What about recruiting, you know, from, you know, like junior year of college? Are you doing like on-campus recruiting? What about people who are like returnships, mums from who've taken time out, or dads? And then people who've had, you know, many years perhaps on one track, working in marketing or whatever. And, you know, how do you apply perhaps that experience into jobs at Zillow? So like, can we get into the nitty gritty of like, what's the best way to apply for perhaps some of these different categories? Are there some obvious kind of like paths in that you can speak to? And like things like referrals, you know, you mentioned like beating down the door, like how should people be doing that proactively in a way that isn't off-putting?
Absolutely. I'm going to let Scott just get to it.
Yeah, I'll take that one. So depending on where you are in your career, like there's different ways that I would approach it. And we'll kind of start at the early part. So you talked a little about high school students. We do have opportunities for students that have just graduated from high school. Traditionally, that role would be what we call connections, which is somewhat of a customer service type of an opportunity, where we hire people all ages into that role, and they work with our end users. So there definitely are opportunities there. We have about, last time I took 600 different positions posted on our website. So none of us know all of them. And I saw a lot of the questions in the chat about, are you hiring for this? Are you hiring for that? Chances are the answer is probably yes, considering we have 600 positions posted. I don't know off the top of my head the nitty gritty of all of them. So I apologize to some of the people in the chat, like I can't answer all of your direct questions. But back to Makita's point earlier, like if you have a chance to talk to a recruiter, the last thing you want to ask them is, what do you have available? Because I can't keep track.
Literally no idea.
Right. So do some of the homework on your own. and look on our website and see what's available. Then when you come to Recruiter and ask a question, you can ask something more distinct, like, and this is what I love, and I'll give you advice to everybody that's, you know, looking to, and this is probably the next thing you should do. Find a position that you're really interested in, apply for it. And I can't tell you how important it is to apply for it when you see it, because if you wait 2 days to try to track down me or somebody else, that position might be filled before you even get a chance at it. So don't wait to talk to somebody first. If you see it, apply right away and then find somebody to talk to. There's this myth about these crazy recruiting algorithms that will automatically turn down your application and stuff. I don't know who uses those. We don't. I wish I had that, to be honest. Well, I'll take it with a grain of salt. I actually don't wish it, but like we do not use any fancy algorithm when you apply that'll automatically turn you down because of X. Like somebody is manually going in there and looking at every single application that comes in. So apply for the position and then find the recruiter and ask a very direct question about that role. And reference like the posting, the link. There's usually an identification number or something, and like say, hey Scott, thanks for coming to the presentation today. Really enjoyed learning what you guys had to say. I saw this position posted. I just applied for it. Here's a link to it. Can you give me some more information about whatever that you're interested on that role? Maybe it's a role on Cynthia's team and I can connect you to Cynthia or something like that, right? But make my job easier. And I think that's like, if there's any one takeaway from this conversation, like this is the one you should take away, is like, how can I make the recruiter's job easier? Right? And just asking a general question that you can find on the website is not making my job easier, right? Making my job easier is serving up something that is a little bit harder for you to find. And it gives me, like, if I get a great email from you that I can just forward to the hiring manager, it takes me 3 seconds to do that. Like, you can't make my job any easier. But if I have to go back and forth with you to pull out and probe more information, that's making my job harder. And the candidate that made my job easier is probably going to be the one that gets the job, right? So that's, I mean, just, you know, general advice for everybody. Referrals are great. We love referrals, but only about, I think the number I saw, 10% maybe of our jobs get filled by referrals. So they are a great source, but you don't need to have one to get in. We hire a ton of people that just randomly apply to our positions, right? So like, I would say, like, you know, try to build your network. The other one thing I'll say that is kind of all encompassing, and Cynthia touched on this a little bit too, was, you know, we can find great software engineers, we can find great data scientists, but what is hard to find is a great software engineer that loves real estate, or a great data scientist that loves real estate, right? A passion for your job is important, but a passion for our industry is in some cases even more important, right? So anything that you can do for those students that are on this call, like if you want a job at Zillow, like you got to be a great computer science major, you got to be a great marketing major, but you also need to know what industry we're in and learn about real estate or mortgages or what have you. That's what's really going to set you apart from another candidate that we see. It's not going to be your ability to write code. It's not going to be your ability to synthesize data. It's not going to be your ability to build relationships. It's going to be your interest in what we do and having alignment with our core values, like Lionel said. So.
I love that. Thank you, Lionel. Or I'm saying Lionel because you said it, Scott.
I know you want to add to that. I see you're chomping at the bit there.
Yeah. Well, you have, one of the things that was being said, excuse me, is making sure that you're prepared. You also have to prepare in the way that you answer questions, right? Whenever we're asking you a question, what we want to hear is examples of what you have done. That's what we're looking for. So you can't say something like ethereal, like I'm really good at. No, we want to know how you know you're really good at. Did you do that? How did you do it? Who did you work with? What were the steps that you went through? That's what we're looking for. It's very clear examples. When we have meetings, or we call them debriefs, about, and this is not just us, by the way, this is like most tech companies now. It was started by one company, I'm not going to say their name, but basically what we do after each meeting or each interview circle is that we We get together and we talk about that candidate, but we talk about is clear examples of how they would fit into the role that we have put forth for them. That's what we talk about. So make sure that you're preparing your answers in that way. It's also a really good thing before you answer, pause. Just take a breath. You don't have to shoot something out immediately. In fact, if you do, oftentimes it might not be exactly what you want to say. Think about the question. Think about your answer as an example, and then give that example.
Thank you. That's so helpful. I'm just going to address a question that's in here, if that's okay, Jill. I saw it got upvoted 3 or 4 times. So someone asked, what are some tips for applicants who don't have much experience yet? And I just love this question as a self-proclaimed finesse queen to figure out how to get to do the jobs that I want to do when I feel like they might not be for me. And kicking the door down a little bit. I think it's about perspective and how you frame what your experience is. So what I did, so I have, some long-term goals, I talk about them with Lionel and Scott, I want to be Chief Diversity Officer someday. That's the goal. And then eventually we'll kick down another door and we'll go further than that. But for now, that's what, I've got my eyes set on. And I actually, I do this exercise where I, Google the job description. I want to understand what is it that it takes for me to do this job that I want. I know I can't do it yet, but I need to figure out what is required of that opportunity. And then I figure out, okay, what skills do I already have? Do I have the right degree background? Great. If not, what do I need to do in order to get, the level of years of experience to be qualified for the opportunity? What kind of projects or skills I need to build, like strategic thinking or leading a team, what have you. And then I take it a step down and figure out, okay, what jobs can I do right now or that can I apply for that will help me get the skills of where I'm trying to go. So sometimes you need to think about what is the role that will help me get to the role that I want, which sometimes is not the most sexy or exciting thing to do, but I had to do 2 jobs that I did not enjoy at all, but I knew that they are giving me the skills that I needed so that I could be successful in the job that I want. And so I would think about in terms of, okay, if you don't have, job experience to be a program manager, but you need to learn how to manage projects, take a project specialist role. Maybe it's not as high level, but you're going to learn those skills that will help you get that program manager role that you want. So sometimes it's taking a click down and thinking, okay, what job can I do that helps me get where I'm trying to go? And no one really wants to do a job that, I don't love or I don't want to do. But my perspective on that is it's okay to do a job that you don't love as long as it is helping you build the skills that you need to do the job that you want. Don't just take any job. If it's not helping you get there, then that's not impactful or useful. But if it helps you build the right skills, then it is always on the right step, on the right track, getting you to where you want to go. So I would think about it that way. And then eventually you will get those skills and then you can kick down the door because you have it and you built them and you are qualified for the opportunity. So I would think about, the frame a little bit differently. Go ahead, Scott.
I love that, Makita. And I'll just add one kind of tip on how you can put this into practice. LinkedIn is an amazing tool. And it can be used in a lot of different ways. And I think this is one way that it's underutilized. So, Makita's example, she wants to be a Chief Diversity Officer, right? That's not an entry-level job, right? CFO is not an entry-level job, right? So what you can do is go on LinkedIn, find a dozen Chief Diversity Officers or a dozen CFOs or a dozen whatever, and look at their career path. You can see every job they've had from their first job up to that Chief Diversity Officer, right? So they're basically building you a roadmap to show you how to become what they are, right? And follow their paths, right? If you look at enough of them, you'll see some commonalities and threads of okay, this was the first job they had, this was the second, this is how they built those skills to get to where you are. So use LinkedIn to its fullest extent. Books and everything else are great, but this is real life information that you can use to build your own path.
And I'll just
go ahead, Lionel.
To using Makita as an example. I met Makita, I think, at one of our events that we had at Zillow Group. But she already had a brand to her before she came to that event. People knew who she was. So people that were connected to me made sure that I met her. And they were like, yeah, you really need to talk to this girl. You really need to talk to this girl. And when I did have a conversation with her, yeah, I was very much impressed because she already had kind of a plan as to what she was going to do. But what impressed me the most is that she did her research. She knew what the company was. She knew what we did. She knew, she kind of knew what I did, which I thought was, which I thought was odd. I was like, all right, what is going on here? But she had this drive to her. And then when she was actually interviewed for a different role, we brought her in for another role. And it was I and at that time, the manager of early talent recruiting. After we had talked with her during the interviews, we decided she's not right for that role. But dude, we got to get her in here. We got to get her in here. So we actually figured it out. We figured out a role for her. And that actually does happen. My role was made for me. Makita's role was made for her. And then the other thing too is it is completely okay to have long-term goals. I mean, in fact, it's really great to have long-term goals with the understanding that it might be a very twisty road to get there. It's not a straight road. Oftentimes it's not. You look at Cynthia's background, right? And she's just all over the place, but she got to a place where she is now, where she's the VP. The point of all this is, I think as you build on your career, it is extremely important to have a goal, but also look for those other opportunities and how those opportunities come to you. Be present enough to understand, okay, maybe I can do this, but that seems pretty cool too. Let me go try that. And then the last thing that I'll say is be assertive and be innovative. The role that you're in is not the role that you have to stay in forever. The way that it's being done is not necessarily the way that it has to be done. Again, Makita's a great example of that. We brought her in as an early talent recruiter. She's the diversity program manager now. She created that role. That was her. That was her working with Scott and saying, Scott, look, this is what I'm doing. That's why this is different. And if you're busting your butt and you're putting in the work, that manager, their responsibility is to notice that, to recognize that. And Scott, to his credit, did. And he said, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Let's put that in for you. So that's, I know that was kind of long-winded, but the thing is, work your ass off. Right? I mean, if this is something that you want to do, I mean, if you want to have a career, and I don't think that everybody needs to, I think you can do all kinds of things, but if this is your goal, then be prepared to do the work. Don't expect anything to be handed to you.
Wow, what great insight. Thank you so much, all of you. Makita, you've allowed us to really peek behind the curtain and find out what life is like at Zillow. And that was our goal. And I hope that everyone has taken some good information away. I'm really sorry that we weren't able to answer all of the questions. Maybe I could share just your email, Makita's, so that if people have got very specific questions, in particular, there are quite a few questions about diversity and inclusion and some people from different communities. And I want to encourage them to you know, to see an open door there. So if that's all right, I will share that one email, and we will be sending the recording to this out next week, so people can absorb it all again and think about their next steps. But it sounds like one next step would be to really look closely at what's on the website in terms of jobs before doing really too much, because you need to figure out, you know, kind of what you might be a good match for. And then, you know, and then be proactive. And this team are obviously very open to seeing that, and really hope that we can make some good connections as a result of today. So thank you so much to Cynthia, Lionel, Scott, and Makita for being with us. You've been a great panel.
Of course.
Next week, next month, we are going to be talking to some folks at Microsoft about their culture. So that'll be fun. We'll be sending information out about that, and a place you can RSVP on the website now, or just wait for the link to come out in a couple of weeks. But thank you everyone for attending today. It's been great to have you.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much
having
for
us.
having us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.